Welcome to the Pancake Parlay. Well, actually, let me start over again. That was sometimes really bad. But hello, everyone, and welcome to the Pancake Parlay, episode 76. I'm your host, The Don, and I'm here with Chatters. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good, Don. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. Today, well, before we talk about what we're going to talk about today, as always, please like, share, and subscribe. That really helps out our content. But yeah, this week we're going to be talking about quite a few things. The D23 happened, so we're going to have a lot of Disney type news, a lot of Star Wars news, obviously, and Marvel news. We're going to be talking about some, of course, DC stuff because we're going to balance it up for the Marvel stuff, and we're going to finish off with a review. With a video game review and a Tarantino movie review. So where do we start? Where do we start, Chatters? Let's go.
Well, I think the newest thing that kind of came out recently was the new Joker trailer. I guess like not controversial, but I guess highly sought after because people don't really know whether or not this movie is going to be good or not, right? At least people have faith in Joaquin Phoenix, but I think given DC's kind of track records in the big screen, people haven't really been too kind of confident in whether or not DC will be able to like pull it off with it. But this new trailer that's come out, what do you think about it?
I feel like it. Yeah, obviously has a different tone, and I think everyone's just talking about like Oscar season, like award type movie, and it possibly could
Hmm.
be that. It doesn't have these, I guess, superhero or comic book trappings. It very much does feel like one of those films where it's just a guy who's down on his luck. Um, the world kind of hates him almost, and he's just trying to get his way. So he kind of, I guess, formulates a way to get an audience. And I feel like that's generally the kind of the plot of the film. And yeah, it has a very unique and interesting tone to it, and it's like I feel like it's really about well, in this version of the Joker, it's called Arthur Fleck, I think that's his name, and it feels like he's like a failed comedian almost. So I feel like that could be very interesting. It reminds me of a movie that came out, I think, like nearly 10 years ago, called Good Morning America, where it's just this guy who like lives like a corporate life, and he's just really sick of American people. So he kind of like the whole premise of that movie was him going to that a talent contest, and basically just going in there with guns blazing and just tell America his like message to everyone. So it kind of reminds me of that film, and I really did enjoy that film. So yeah, I really enjoyed that. So and the Joker film looks pretty damn interesting, especially for a comic book film. So there's that.
Yeah, I would agree. I think the fact that like this trailer does a good job of not like necessarily hinting at, the exact story beats of this movie. You can kind of get like, as you said, like, Arthur Fleck, he's like a failed comedian of some capacity, which isn't that far from like the origin of the Joker, even though like I think in DC law there isn't a true origin, but it's kind of suggested that his origin is based off the Killing Joke, which is when he is a failed comedian and his wife gets like killed incidentally, and it kind of drives him into being like a criminal and becoming insane. And you kind of see that a little bit of that. I think like this movie is going to be touching a lot more on like mental health as well, because you see the Joker kind of interacting with like I think like maybe like a caseworker or a psychologist, and he's just like pointing out like, yeah, you're not doing anything, you're just kind of having me come here, repeat the same things over and over again. And I think it does kind of it might give like it might be like a commentary on that kind of this like the mental health system like in the West or whatever wherever you may be from, and also kind of showing that yeah like he kind of inspires this movement that is supposed to be against the I guess the status quo at the time, with all the Joker masks, very similar to the Guy Fawkes
Yeah,
masks
the
in
V
V
Vendetta,
for
which is also
Vendetta.
based off a comic book.
Exactly. So yeah, I think it'll be interesting to see what it looks like. I like what I see so far. I just hope that like I think for DC's sake and just like the property sake, I hope it's good. You know me, I can be pretty biased when it comes to DC stuff, but like I think this movie actually genuinely looks good and has like that potential for like being award winning, don't you think?
Yeah, and I feel like this is kind of like the right step. I feel like in a lot of ways. Like I think number one for the genre of I guess comic book stuff. Like I feel like we can very much move away from I guess antics of I guess superheroes. We can still have that. Just that we could still have room and space for something that's very unique and interesting. As mentioned before, this is one of the reasons why I really like Legion is because it does something very different to the general formula, and I kind of want that. Not only that, but like this is in the end technically a villain, and it's kind of painting the villain in kind of I guess a better light.
Hmm.
And it looks like it's shot very differently, and I'm very interested of what Todd Phillips can do. As I always mention over and over again, this is the guy who wrote and directed Hangover, so I'm like, okay, but he's got some talent, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I think people said the same thing about the Russo brothers, and they've been doing like a heck of a good job over that at Marvel, making them like billions of dollars. So like literally billions, I guess, because they did direct both of the Avengers
Yeah,
films, right?
both Avengers, and
Yeah,
then
that's
pretty much
crazy.
like the last two Captain America films. So that's four
I,
films.
yeah, I feel like I've liked all the movies that they've made. Like they haven't been like low quality at all. So yeah, it's always good to kind of see people move in that direction and kind of do something different and not stick to like their guns all the time, you know. So yeah, so that goes for the Joker trailer. We also had the reveal of the Titans season 2 trailer.
Yeah, we already
Um,
had an earlier tease, which just showed characters doing stuff, but this is pretty much that trailer, just with more or less
More
dialogue.
shit. Yeah, yeah. And we actually get, you know what? I still kind of get put off by, you know, the Bruce Wayne character, being played by what's his face from Game of Thrones, because I feel like because he has like a British accent, and I feel like his like role should have probably been Alfred more than Bruce Wayne. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you're supposed to keep that American, like trying to keep it an American. You're supposed to be American, being Bruce
Yeah, yeah,
Wayne, but he's not.
yeah, yeah. And you'd think that if he has like a British accent, like he'd like immediately be recognized when he's Batman. Like, when he puts on like a deep voice, it's gonna come out really British, you know?
Mm.
But maybe he puts on an American accent when he gets when he gets into the bat suit, you know? But yeah, like I mean, a lot of the trailer looks pretty cool. It's nice to see that we have like a lot more like how like the characters look. We're getting a little bit more of what the story's going to be about in some capacity. There seems to be implied that there used to be an old Titans team until Deathstroke came along and shut it down. I think that's kind of what it's implying. And they're like, oh no, it's Deathstroke. So they've interacted with Deathstroke before. Deathstroke being a pretty instrumental character within the Teen Titans comics. Essentially, his son died during like a contract to like kill the Teen Titans or something or other, and basically his father Deathstroke took him out like instead. Like he kind of became like a enemy for them instead. So it'll be interesting to see if they're following that particular story beat.
Well,
Um,
maybe it might actually they'll try to humanize Deathstroke instead of him just being a guy who likes to kill people out of contract.
yeah, it could be something like that. The other thing is we also have I forget the character's name, but essentially it's supposed to be Deathstroke's daughter because he has a son and a daughter, and the daughter seems to be kind of interacting with the Teen Titans. Like maybe it's going to be like, oh, like if you're gonna take out my dad, you'll need my help, kind of thing. But I'm thinking that they might be doing, like a similar situation with what happened with Terra from the original Teen Titans series and the comics. Like Terra is basically like a mole for Deathstroke who kind of infiltrates the team, and is kind of classically used as like that character that betrays them, and you kind of like, oh no, like I didn't expect this. But I think because her character is kind of known for that, they might be having the daughter play that particular role instead. I'm not
Yeah,
too
I can
sure.
definitely see that.
Yeah, but you know what I mean. Like it'd be a pretty good way to kind of like exact that revenge without like being too predicted. Like that's the kind of problems when you that's the problem when you adapt stories from comics. Like people who've read it like already know the answer. Unless you do it one for one, like maybe you have to kind of do a little bit of a twist, kind of like how in like Arkham Knight, like they had the Arkham Knight, and it's like who could it be? Oh well, I mean it's not Red Hood, whatever you think, it's not that guy, it's not,
It's
and
it's
then it
not
ended up,
it's not what is generally in the comic kind of the character.
yeah, exactly, but then it ended up being the same guy. Like I could imagine it being the same kind of thing. So yeah, I'm looking forward to Titans season 2. It looks really good. I still haven't got around to finishing Swamp Thing. I really have to finish it and hopefully give my review of it
Yeah,
because
because
I've liked what I've seen
I've
so
watched
far.
it's pretty good. It's a real shame that it did end. Because I felt like it was very much growing to, I guess, a bigger universe, especially when it came to Swamp Thing. That's kind of my whole
That's
thing.
a shame.
Yeah, it is very much
Um,
a shame.
but speaking of kind of like growing universes, Disney during D23 had a slew of different announcements. And one of the big announcements that initially came out was that they were going to do an Obi-Wan series on the platform. So it's going to be, I guess it's going to be like a typical kind of 10 episode series. They don't even call those mini series anymore. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah, they
I,
just
I
call it a
remember
series because I feel
it's
like
just a
before you
series
had to
now,
justify like this is not going to have a second season, but now like you can just call it something and that's it.
and it's like 8 episodes, 10 episodes is a season, whereas like in the past it used to have to be like 20 episodes. But yeah, Obi-Wan series. I don't think it's been confirmed that Ian McGregor is going to come back and play the role, but
No,
I
no, no.
think
He's back. He's back. There was
is it confirmed?
yeah, there
Oh,
was a whole video online.
oh, fantastic.
Where Kathleen
I
Kennedy's
must.
like, "Hey, I want to introduce you to someone," and then he walks out on stage.
Oh, that's
It's like a
fantastic.
less cool version of like Keanu Reeves in
Keanu
Cyberpunk,
Reeves. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
but
It's like
but
this.
basically it's kind of the same thing. But they're just like, we got him and let's
Well, that's
go.
good. I think it's one of those things that Disney has to kind of do to kind of win the good faith of the fans back, especially after episode 8. But I guess we'll kind of come into that a little bit more of what we think about what Disney's got coming forward. Another announcement was the Clone Wars. I think it's the final season of Clone Wars. Is set to release in February. So I look forward to that. Like it's kind of a long time coming because I think they announced like that they were going to like do that particular battle like in 2016,
Mm.
right? Like when
Yeah,
they kind of
there was
announced it.
something.
Like
There was talks about that, and it's just like, yeah, and yeah, because I'm a big Clone Wars fan, and I was kind of annoyed when when they canceled it because it's pretty high tier, especially since like last week we talked about talked about our Resistance basically being canceled,
yeah,
and like Clone Wars seemed to be like that beacon of like this is high quality animated Star Wars stuff. So we
yeah,
got
and
Dave Filoni at the helm as well, and he's a really good person to make really great stories.
exactly. So I only look forward to more kind of Clone Wars, and maybe it might not be the final season. Maybe it's like a setup to the final season or something like that. I guess we'll just have to see, what the go is going forward.
Mm.
And another thing that got released was the new Mandalorian trailer. Disney. I think we were talking about this back when, I want to say like maybe a year plus ago, when they kind of announced this. I remember kind of being like, oh, they might have like some, interesting kind of stories regarding this, but ultimately we'll have to wait and see it about how it looks, and it looks pretty good. Um, like obviously we're not seeing much. There's a lot of like cool action, a lot of like kind of CGI, but the CGI looks good for like TV,
Yeah, and I
or
feel like
for
this is
streaming.
like before Disney bought Lucasfilm, there was a talks, I guess, to make a Star Wars TV show that would revolve around bounty hunters, and this is kind of pretty much that 10-year rumor basically put into reality. And everyone's just like, this is the best way to do it. But how are you gonna make a TV show that looks like Star Wars and feels like Star Wars with a budget?
Mhm.
And I feel like I don't know how much this show is going to cost. Maybe they're taking it on the chin almost, and then just kind of sell it like merchandising rights. But
Hmm.
it does look really great and looks high quality as well. Like the world, it kind of reminds me of like maybe the first season of like Westworld almost, where it's like high quality. Everything looks like proper. Like it would be like $1 million budget.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And apparently Taika Waititi is voicing like the droid that's in this particular show, like IG-88. That's like kind of the droid. If you watch the trailer, there's a droid that kind of like spins around and kind of shoots like some blasters and stuff. Like you kind of almost sound, looks like a mounted pillar spinning around. Like it was like one of the kind of cool scenes in the show. But the thing I kind of liked about it is, once they actually kind of revealed the Mandalorian character and he's got like a hook, he's kind of almost like acting like a like Batman with his kind of grappling hook kind of thing and like dragging people. It kind of looked pretty dope. Yeah, it'd be cool to see like that kind of Star Wars. I think like being like a bounty hunter, um, because when people think Star Wars, they think like ooh, like Jedi's and Force stuff. But like bounty hunters like Boba Fett and his ilk has always kind of been like another cool component of Star Wars. So it would be interesting to see them kind of explore that particular area. We'll
Yeah,
have to wait till more stuff gets released about it.
yeah, because it looks really beautiful. It looks like it's shot really well. And I'm just very curious of what they do with the characters, as well as maybe even exploring other bounty hunters and their kind of process. Maybe I want to see like a kind of story arc or a few episodes of like the main character, he's chasing a bounty and someone else is chasing the bounty at the exact same time, and there's some rivalries and things like that. Like I want to see all that type of stuff into this show set in Star Wars, and that's what I'm really excited for and can't wait for. Because to me, yeah, this is something that I've kind of wondered for a while.
Yeah, exactly. Like again, is it set after episode 6, or is it set after, or is it set during the new timeline? Because I'm a little bit confused about when it was set. Like I didn't do too much research into it, but I'm assuming like with all the like dead stormtrooper helmets or whatever, it must be set in like at least like kind of episode 6 onwards, right?
Yeah, it seems to be kind of in that time period. I think the rumor was I actually don't I don't even know. Um,
Mm.
either way,
But
it'd be very interesting to see what they do with what timeline.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. But yeah, I guess to move on, I guess we've also had the release of Star Wars Episode 9. We've got like I think it's a trailer 2,
Yeah, trailer two,
that
but
came
pretty
out.
much trailer one was more or less just a tease, I'd
Sneak
say.
peek, right? Yeah. And that like literally showed us nothing except Rey jumping over I guess
A
like a,
ship, a Tie Fighter,
a ship.
which to be fair, this trailer didn't really do that much either. Oh, well, me personally,
Uh,
at least.
yeah, yeah. I don't think it's kind of revived my interest in episode 9, but we kind of saw like a lot more kind of build up into what's going on. Like, oh yeah, like Ray and the gang kind of join it. All the I talked about I talked about it last week about how Disney is purposely trying to replace the original cast, right? And you can kind of see it in this one shot where it's like it's Ray, it's Poe, it's Finn, and oh, there's this big CGI of town that they walk into, and it's just like nobody actually believes that this is real. It just looks like ass,
Mm,
look, I'm just saying, like, if they did it with practical effects, it would probably look much better and much more like lived in. But because we all know that they didn't, it just looks really shallow. It's like, oh, look at this party that's this miles long, but I don't know, party or whatever town they're walking into, and
this is
then
an RPG now.
yeah, yeah, you know what I mean? And it's there's more of that. Like I don't know what the yeah, Kylo fights Rey eventually, and I
Again,
don't know.
which everyone's just kind of saying, hey, you did that in the first movie, and he bested him like with no training. So like I don't understand like the difference here is just like, yeah,
I
Rey's
mean,
probably
I
gonna
mean,
win
does it?
again.
I mean, didn't she beat Kylo on? Oh, I guess they didn't actually
They
come
didn't
to a
really fight. It
conclusion
was
in
more
the
like,
fight.
just come
Yeah,
with
they
me, and
teamed
he's
up.
like,
Yeah,
nah,
yeah,
don't do it though, don't do it.
yeah, yeah. I guess yeah. I guess they didn't really fight. They fought
They were like doing
together.
that weird romance thing. I'm like, what is this film?
Yeah, it's Ryan Johnson. That's what happened. But yeah, look, I guess a big elephant is the fact that we see a scene towards the end, and it's Rey, and she's got this double lightsaber which she kind of flicks into. Oh, also, what? Sorry, before I mention this, did you notice at the beginning of this trailer they really tried to hit you hard with the nostalgia? They're like, "Oh, hey, remember these movies? All the movies that you liked, episode 4, 5, 6. Hey, remember those prequels that you didn't like originally, but are way better than the stuff we're releasing? Here's some previews of these. Here's Darth Maul." And then like I get it, because like, she then hold like a double bladed lightsaber, but like it's just like, all right, we get it. Like you're really trying to squeeze and every ounce of nostalgia you can.
Yeah, they basically want those like really hardcore Star Wars people to watch
Yeah,
this trailer and be like, I remember all those good times and those memories I had with the original trailer, so they start crying at the start. It's like basically emotional like manipulation almost. It's like you can have that, and I kind of felt really bad because it says this is where it all ends. I'm like, yeah, I don't know. Like to me, it still ends like 1 to 6 really, because it's like the Skywalker saga. It seems to be like these sequel movies have nothing got to do with it, even though it's said it is in this Skywalker saga type of thing. It's nothing got to do with him really, unless they just like
no,
yeah,
unless
it's Rey's kid now. I don't know.
I feel like it might them that might be the reveal. Like it might be like, oh, Rey is like Luke Skywalker's like clone, right? Because you can technically have her be the clone, because if you just have Luke's like double like his X chromosome, like you can still just kind of like double that, and then you have like a female version of Luke, even though it wouldn't be the female version of Luke, but you get what I mean, right?
Yeah.
They
By the
could
way,
do.
I wouldn't put it past JJ to do some weird shit like that and like recanon the whole thing at that point.
Well, here's the thing, because I heard like, yeah, if it turns out that she's a clone, that could explain the reason why, like in episode 8, you know how when she goes into that deep dark side pit or whatever,
That
and then
means
when
nothing, but now
that mean
it means
uh
something.
well, yeah, it could mean something, because all she sees is herself going backwards and forwards. So that could be like, oh, she's a clone. You actually don't have like a
You
history.
don't even have
You know
parents
what I mean?
either.
You don't have, well, she technically doesn't. Her parents were like not even those giant tall alien dudes that made the clones. Like it could be, it's just she just exists. That could be some way that they could try and retroactively explain that kind of bad writing by Ryan Johnson. Like it's going to be one of those things where it's like, see, look, episode 9 explains all this, but it really doesn't.
Yeah, it's gonna be one of
It's
those
just,
like hat jobs where it's like you didn't really plan this. It reminds me of like
yeah.
Harry Potter, like where I'm like, okay, like because with the Harry Potter thing, like J.K. Rowling pretty much wrote like the first 4 books pretty much right after another, and it was kind of like obviously very early setup, and then like the last 3 books, it was a little bit later, and I felt like there's certain characters that change or certain things that reveal something. I'm like, nah, that was not planned from the start. You just thought of something from the past and just like that had significance in it.
Right. Yeah, like it's yeah, that's retcons in a nutshell, right? Like I remember the same thing like with what is it? What's that device that Hermione uses to
The
like
time
turn
turner,
back?
yeah.
Yeah, the time turners, and then like the time turners are never used like in any of the Harry Potter books ever again, because that's how kind of ridiculous. Like I mean, time travel and objects and things that have the ability to kind of change time are always kind of overpowered in media, just by its very nature. But I remember somebody was telling me like, yeah, they kind of either banned time turners or like they got rid of them or
Yeah, in the
something. So
the it's not even in the book or anything, but it's in the play, the Half Blood Prince, not the Half Blood Prince, the Cursed Child. It's
the
basically
cursed
when they're
child,
all
yeah.
like 50 years old, and then they just said they banned all the time turners. But that's like the crux of that one where it's like we've got there's the one left and we have it,
Yeah,
that
because
type
I
of
was
thing.
gonna, yeah, because I was gonna say it's like what's stopping like any of these people from using a time turner? Like that's what I was thinking. Again, like I'm kind of biased because I really like time travel as like a story mechanic, or like an ability, or like I always love if there's ever a point where it's like, oh, you have to choose one ability, what would it be like, right? Mine would always be time manipulation. It's kind of like remember the old TV show Heroes?
Yep. You know,
Yeah,
my good old fave.
yeah, and Hiro Nakamura had like the ability to control time, even though he was like kind of bad at doing it. I miss that show. It's too bad the reboot or the kind of like continuation wasn't that good either. From hearing, I didn't watch it.
I didn't watch it, but it's like it did encapsulate like early 2000s TV, and I feel like a lot of
In a
things have
nutshell,
changed and moved now. So it's like that's kind of
exactly.
what it was. But
Yeah, I
yeah,
mean,
but
I guess now we have Legends of Tomorrow instead. You know what I mean?
yeah, pretty much we
But
got the quirky humor. But yeah, essentially, you know, even talking about like time travel, there was the rumor that there would be time travel in this. I don't think that's the case because
oh,
but
I don't know. That's gonna be
but
tough.
there is a pretty good rumors where it's like, you know, it kind of makes sense almost, or like, you know,
Oh yeah, tell me.
you
What have
see
you
some
heard?
weird stuff in this where it's like it could be like an alternate universe, like you see C3PO with red eyes and it was like, what's that?
Mhm.
I don't know. And I feel like this trailer does a lot of that. They give you a lot of stuff, so
I feel
then
like
people like us question it and it means really nothing in the end. I feel like that's what they're
yeah,
trying to do to us.
I feel like it's misdirection because yeah, sorry, I just mentioned it earlier with you see Rey in like the hood and she's got the double-bladed lightsaber and stuff. I feel like those that kind of that particular kind of scene is supposed to be deceptive, but it could be one of those things where it's like it's purposely deceptive. Because I feel like it has to be because if they kind of spoil that Rey ends up being bad, that's gonna like it's like, oh well, you already showed us in the trailer she's bad, right? Whereas like in the movie it's going to be like, oh, it's just a force dream or it's just Rey's clone. I don't think Disney's been
Or it'd
trying
be
to
one of
like
those things where she like invades like a Sith stronghold or something like that, and all of a sudden like steals a lightsaber. It'll be like inconsequential, but it's just there
oh
for the
right, like as
trailer.
in as in she pretends to be yeah
See,
because I feel
that's
like
what I'm saying. A lot of this shit is like when theorizing about this, it
yeah
doesn't really mean anything because like JJ out of anything could pull something out of his ass and just be like, here it is, and we're just supposed to be like, okay then.
yeah, I mean look, he has to deal with the piece of shit that Ryan Johnson left behind, right? I think the thing was this is like I guess they can try and do something like, oh, like it's yeah, I like the idea of her trying to infiltrate, but the thing is like there aren't any Sith outside of Kylo, like unless what she's going to pretend to be one of Kylo's like buddies. I forget what they're called, the Knights of Ren. Ooh, like I don't think that's going to be the case. I think it's definitely going to be like a Force stream, much like how in the original Star Wars, like on Dagobah, Luke kind of like fights Darth Vader, and it turns out to be him all along, right? Like when we at the time when we didn't know the true identity of Darth Vader. So like I can imagine it being a very similar thing. Like, oh, she goes somewhere and oh, she sees like one of her clones or a Force like spirit thingamajig, and oh, she has to fight herself in order to know who she is. It's going to be some kind of
Yeah, but
dumb.
who is she really? Because
No
that's
one
even a
cares.
question that we're trying to answer. Because it's just like she has no real
Again,
motivation. She gets kind of
a clone
motivated
of
by
Luke.
everyone around her. She and there's all these like questions about her, and everyone's like, "There's nothing there." And unless that's also misdirection as well, I don't know. But it's like,
Well, you see, it's one.
like Star Wars turned into a theorizing show like Lost because of JJ almost.
Well, yeah. I mean, look, that's the other thing. Like, like I kind of said this from episode 7 that this is kind of the direction that they should have taken Star Wars, where, you know, um, Ray should have been like the episode 8 should have been about how the big reveal is that like Snoke is actually, uh, what is it,
Darth Sidious,
um,
or no, it's not that.
Pelagius,
Palpatine,
Pelagius, no,
Plagueis.
Pelagius, right? And that Ray all along was supposed to be like this clone, pawn that he actually raised, but then got like kidnapped and I don't know, like and that's how she ends up becoming the bad guy at the end, which is kind of what it is now. And then my whole thing was Kylo was pretending to be the part of the dark side, because as I said, like when one side is light, there has to be a dark to balance. So he becomes the dark side, not because like the dark side is inherently bad, because I think that's what Star Wars was trying to do in Episode 8, just really poorly, right? And that like there isn't a good and bad, right? It's just like there's light and dark, and so him being part of the dark side was like an attempt to try and get closer to Snoke, and eventually kill him, right? Rather than him actually being bad. And so the big redemption is that you find out in Episode 8 that, oh, Kylo isn't actually a bad guy. Like, he didn't want to kill Han, but like he had to, because if he was going to be able to try and convince this all-powerful person to eventually allow him to get close enough to kill him, he had to kill his own dad. So it's one of those kind of like a reluctant bad guy, and then he kind of would redeem himself in Episode 9, which would be this episode, and then he fights Rey. They've kind of like switched places to where they were in like the previous movie, but I mean that actually requires rubbing two brain cells together. So it's not something that I expect to see from Star Wars anytime soon. But no, that's just because it's currently I don't know.
It's basically one big mess, and it's just like no one cares about these new characters aside from maybe Kylo, because he just seems to have more of a character arc than everyone else. Like we haven't even talked about Finn, and like what's his deal or Poe's deal? No one knows. No one knows. No one cares.
What about Rose? Do you think Rose? Do you think Rose?
Yeah, we don't see Rose, or even like the new characters or whatever on the poster. Those other like the female bounty hunter or whatever. It's like at this point we don't really care. Like I just want to see the OG characters and stuff like that. I don't even know how they got Lando. Why is he even here? I don't know.
Because they killed everyone else, and they have to kill everyone before they kind of move on.
Before George Lucas gets more money.
Exactly. Hey, that's the theory, right? But yeah, that's Star Wars. As you can tell, we're probably not gonna. I don't know. I'm not like a big fan of like. I don't know if I'm actually gonna watch this movie in the cinemas, right? Like nothing interests me. Like I might as well.
Well, I think I've skipped Solo. I don't know if I want to like, cause I feel like this is like the main one, and this is it, and then I'm kind of done with Star Wars unless it's like really effing good.
Really good.
But I don't know. Yeah, I'm definitely not gonna see it like opening weekend. That's for sure.
Yeah, I mean, look, if somebody pays for my ticket. If Disney wants to pay for my ticket, maybe I'll.
No. We're not shilling enough. We're not positive about all the Disney news.
Yeah, I mean, especially with my review of Star Wars Resistance last week. But yeah, look, I'm. We'll just have to see. Is there going to be any more trailers? There must be at least one more, right? That they got to.
Yeah, I think they always do it right around the end, where just about when it's about to release, being like, yeah, for your Christmas like gifts. Like, give them Star Wars tickets.
I guess. Maybe they'll start giving away, like, Star Wars tickets with, like, their Happy Meals. Who knows? But yeah, I guess that kind of wraps up, kind of Star Wars news. The other kind of big news that came out was the sudden announcement of 3 new Disney Plus TV series from the kind of Marvel universe, which is She-Hulk, Miss Marvel, and Moon Knight. I was pretty surprised about this because I thought they kind of had the framework for, okay, this is what we're doing the next 2 years. But they're like, boom, She-Hulk, and boom, Miss Marvel. I think I believe they announced Black Panther for 2022, but I think that doesn't fall into the kind of Phase 4 universe. I think Phase 4 is 2020 through to 2021.
Yeah, it's generally a 2-year gap. Yeah.
But yeah, what did you think about the announcement of these particular kind of characters and them getting their own, I guess, TV series on Disney Plus?
Well, I feel like, first of all, they played the hand a little bit too early with these, and I think they only did it. I think clearly because of the whole Spider-Man situation. They definitely wanted to announce something. I feel like almost, so they're just like, they already had this in the works, so they're just like, we'll give them these title cards.
Sorry, I need to make a correction from last week, because I think, I think at the time when I made this particular kind of, announcement, there was still a lot of kind of news in the air about I guess the inner workings within Sony and Disney. Now, from my kind of understanding, like I mentioned that, apparently Disney asked for like a 50%, kind of partnership deal to make Spider-Man films and things going forward. But there was also kind of talks that Sony offered like initially offered 30, and it got like and then Disney left them hanging. The kind of counter response to this particular narrative was that Disney actually allegedly asked for a 25% intake. So from a 5% kind of production kind of cost value to 25. So that kind of increases it fivefold, right? Rather than the tenfold that they were talking about. But then apparently Sony like kind of didn't talk to them for 6 months, and that kind of led to Marvel being, at least from the narrative, like desperate. Well, not desperate, but like being like, hey, look, if you don't like the 25, like, hey, we'll put in half the production costs just to keep Spider-Man around. This is a current narrative, or at least the like kind of counter narrative that was placed in regards to it. So who really knows what the unless we get like another Sony leak, right? We won't necessarily know who's really telling the truth, because if you think about it, it kind of makes sense that that Sony initially said, hey, like they were sitting on 30, but like Marvel allegedly offered that 25% kind of cut in as well. So I'm not too sure who's telling the truth. I think there is at least a modicum of truth in regards to like maybe Sony thinking that, hey, we can actually get and not Andrew Garfield,
Andrew Garfield. Oh man.
Actually, you know what? Apparently, Andrew Garfield got himself fired, according to the leaked Sony emails. Yeah, because apparently he didn't go to like a Spider-Man premiere like somewhere in like I want to say Rio, right?
Yeah.
And he didn't go there, allegedly because he was sick. Like apparently he was like, oh, I can't do it, like I'm feeling sick, and like and apparently in the emails they were just like, oh, like he just didn't show up and blah blah blah, and that apparently got him fired. So that's pretty interesting to see that something like that could get you, if you don't play ball with what the executives and stuff want, that can get you fired.
If it's
like,
not in your
it
contract,
makes sense.
then
Yeah, and the thing is, like, Marvel does a really good job. Like all the actors and all that, like, do a really good job at like kind of uh kind of promoting the films that they are in. So I think they always do like a good job at kind of promoting the films. I think going forward we'll have to see, because what happens with Spider-Man. I think the problem is Sony did really well with Venom, like from a money point of view, and they, although I think Into the Spider-Verse didn't make a lot of money, it won a lot of awards, and those two films were done like in-house.
yeah. So
So
they've
maybe
just
that
like
might be giving
why
them.
have Disney be around?
Yeah, I think ultimately that's what it comes down to. And yeah, I think it's just going to be tough because again, like Disney owns the merchandise rights. I think like if there's some kind of, they could have maybe tried to do some kind of negotiating about it. It's like, hey, like you get 50% of Spider-Man, we get 50% of merch. Like there's some kind of
Yeah,
quid pro
they're
quo
like the
here.
X-Men more or less. What Fox
Yeah,
did,
in a
because Fox could
sense.
make the it was one or the other. It was like Fox could make the movies, but like Disney can make the merch, and that's why
Mm.
there was no X-Men merch, because they, even though they can make money, they're just like, yeah, we're not promoting your brand, so no. So that
Okay.
so yeah, essentially, going back to everything, I feel like I don't really know much about She-Hulk, aside from I think the recent comics from like 5 years ago I heard are alright. Miss Marvel, I've only heard really bad things, and I don't really care about the
Yeah.
character as far as I know. The only thing I do know is about Moon Knight, and I've heard
Hmm.
he's pretty badass, but that's really my knowledge is pretty much.
Yeah, that it's kind of the same here. Like She-Hulk, I've heard like there's like the old She-Hulk series, like comic book series that like, oh, like where she's like maybe like a lawyer or something like that. Apparently those are pretty good. But then like I've heard the latest kind of all new, all different Marvel version of She-Hulk was like really bad and didn't do well. So I don't know what kind of direction they want to go with that. Is it going to be like someone who like Bruce Banner was working with and like because I think in the comics it's like she's like Bruce Banner's cousin who needs like a blood transfusion, and like because Bruce gives her his irradiated blood, not thinking like it's gonna turn into a green mutant.
What? As a scientist, that's a pretty stupid move.
I don't know, man. Like that's not how blood works. Last time I checked, either. But yeah, it's not his fault. But like, yeah, it might, given that like, it's really weird. Like, it's always really funny that like, the female, like the male versions of like a character who becomes like a mutant or something gets like really buff and really big, whereas like the female version they just become really sexy. Like, I wonder like if they're gonna go for that in the She-Hulk series or not, like if they're gonna keep a more realistic version of Hulk. And also this She-Hulk show could lead to like a bit of like a back door into allowing the Hulk to be in like a movie going forward, right? Like because I think they can't do a solo Hulk
Yeah,
film, but
that's owned by Universal still.
So maybe they might be able to do like a She-Hulk film, or something, and just have like Bruce Banner in it. It's like, hey, I'm here. Like it's called Hulk, not She-Hulk, right?
Different
I can see
thing, you
that
know.
being and Miss Marvel, yeah, I mean, I think like the interesting thing about Miss Marvel is she's technically an Inhuman, from my understanding, right? This was like around about the time that they were trying to do the whole, hey, you know what? We're getting rid of because we can't use X-Men, we're going to use Inhumans instead. So it's going to be interesting to see whether or not she's going to be an Inhuman in the TV series, or whether she's going to be like the first introduction to a X-Men, right? Or the X-Men kind of universe in some capacity. She's got like stretchy hands and stuff, or like she's basically
Mr.
very similar
Fantastic,
to
more or
Mr.
less.
Fantastic. Yes, basically more or less. So, yeah, I think the power set, like like for Mr. Fantastic, I don't, Mr. Fantastic like isn't just like super stretchy. He's
Well,
like
yeah,
a
he's
scientist as
if
well.
you read the comics, it's very much like he's pretty much up there with Stark and Bruce Banner when it comes to like science and stuff. Like it's basically
Yeah,
those three
he's the
that
top. Yeah, he's like they're like the top three, right? In terms of like smartest people.
yeah, and they
So,
they figure stuff out. They always go to space and things like
oh
that.
yeah,
Like
I guess Doctor Doom would probably be up there too, like in that top three. Like he'd replace one of them. But yeah, like with Marvel, yeah, I haven't heard too great things about the comic, but I mean like it is a good way, because it kind of seems like with them kind of introducing Miss Marvel and stuff like that, maybe they're going to be trying to like and how I mentioned like, oh, like they might be having the a Falcon be Captain America. That's like during this like phase in the comics where it was like all new, all different Marvels. So that might be what they're trying to kind of integrate into it.
I wouldn't be
Hopefully it's
surprised if they
good
use that moniker for
for
the
the thing.
next phase, whatever it is, new, all
Um,
different.
I mean, I think it's going to be. I hope that the next Avengers film is called the New Avengers or something, because that's essentially what the original comics was called, and it'd be a pretty good throwback. And finally, yeah, I don't know enough about Moon Knight. Like, he kind of looks cool. Apparently, he's like a soldier who like gets killed in a Egyptian temple, and I don't know, gets like possessed by some kind of spirit, and I don't know, he has powers when the moon's out. All right. Like something like that. I don't really know too much.
Yeah, I don't know much aside from people just like, yeah, he's badass. It's really cool. It kind of reminds me of like a Deadpool, but like not funny. So I'm like, okay, like
Mhm.
just
Yeah,
I don't know.
yeah,
It's very like obscure Marvel.
yeah, and I guess that's everything from Marvel. But just on a side note, they're rebooting or kind of continuing the Hilary Duff TV series. Like I grew up watching that. Totally dope. And they're bringing back the main actress to come back as Lizzie McGuire. So that's really 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 interesting. And then on top of that, I just want to say this for the title. This is a new Disney Plus kind of show that's coming out. It's called High School Musical, the series. That is actually what it's called. That's how.
Well, if it's called like I swear to God, if it's just called High School Musical, the TV show, that's okay. But and then putting that little bit of the musical after High School Musical, it's like
I
High
think
School
maybe
Musical
it's
is a musical, so I don't know why you have to frame it in such a
maybe
way that
maybe
like, hey,
maybe
it's a
the
musical.
maybe the implication is that like the entire thing is a musical, whereas like High School Musical, it was a musical, but then there's like these story beats where like it's like regular acting, right? And they're not singing the whole time. Maybe they're singing the whole time in
I doubt it. I completely.
no. Okay.
I think there's
I
only
don't
like
know.
yeah, I don't know. I yeah, no, just not gonna happen. I don't know. It's stupid. I
Yeah.
just can't wrap my brain around it. You know.
High School Musical, the musical, the series. That's all I gotta say. But the other thing that kind of came out is that apparently Disney Plus like episodes will be coming out on like a weekly basis rather than like the Netflix binge model. So it's very similar to how you know the DC Universe app and stuff are releasing their kind of shows on like a periodic drip feeding rather than like a binge take. I wanted to kind of ask what you thought about their decision to do that.
I think it's fine. I feel like obviously, like I can kind of see it obviously with DC because they I guess they have less content in comparison. Less things to kind of fall back on. But with Disney Plus, you do have a lot more of a wealth of content. They are putting Fox stuff on there. Not any R-rated stuff. That was the confirmed thing that there's going to be nothing that's like MA 15 plus onwards, which is kind of a shame on their streaming service. But yeah, I don't really mind episodic. I feel like sometimes it is a little bit different, especially when you're so used to streaming all the time when you can binge watch stuff. But maybe Disney has some sort of weird metrics where they know that like maybe in the end when it comes to press and returning things and getting money, week by week basis is probably the best option. But that's my speculation.
Yeah, I think that's it. Like I completely agree. Because it can be a bit of a risk, to kind of dump it all, especially when you have like a mass production. Like if we're talking about, we're not talking about like High School Musical, the TV show, the animation, the cartoon. We're talking about, the Mandalorian. That show looks like it's put a lot of dollars into the creation of it. So I can definitely understand that, maybe putting it all into like a binge model, like with the Netflix way of doing things, isn't something that, the executive higher up can kind of like be convinced is a good idea, as opposed to getting a lot of eyeballs out on, the Disney, getting people to regularly come back and use the app. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I feel like they also probably want to capture the whole water cooler type of situation where every single week someone comes back and it's like, oh man, did you watch the new episode of so and so? Like
Mhm.
like I feel like that was very much the same
Game
thing
of
with
Thrones.
Game of
That was the
Thrones.
last. That's like the last one that we had that
Yeah, and
worked in that
I feel like
capacity.
maybe they're trying to push that in a sense of we want people to discuss it week by week basis. Because with binge series, you don't really get that as much. Or someone just
Mm.
said, yeah, the season was cool and so, but like you'd have to watch the whole thing.
I mean, sometimes it's even. I kind of feel like it's even hard for us sometimes when you kind of like because I wanted to watch 13 Reasons Why, but like I couldn't kind of fit in like 13 hours, this week to just
It's
watch
probably
it all.
like
You know what I
12
mean?
hours. Like
No, what? Well, you know what I mean, right?
yeah.
Like it. Like ultimately, it's like it's with so many shows and so many things to watch and with so little time, so many things getting my attention. It's kind of hard to get everything and watch it all in one binge. So sometimes having that show that kind of comes out in a drip feed kind of does give you a bit of time to just digest and watch it alongside other things. Like I wouldn't mind kind of doing a Mandalorian like review every week if that's what people are interested in,
Mm.
because that show looks pretty dope. But yeah, like we'll just have to see whether or not that's the direction that stays, and whether or not they might do something different, maybe after they look at the numbers for the shows that they've released.
Yeah, it's all about the metrics. If they see more people are talking about it in this particular area where it generates more money, they'll definitely stick with it. And yeah, it's still a brand new service, so they're very much. This is like what people are framing it now. This is the stream wars. Like, this is like all the competitions out there. Everyone's seeing what sticks, and then come back to me in 5 to 10 years time. There'll be at least one person that bows out, I think, maybe, or like has less control. Because like me personally, I feel like Amazon is killing it. I think Amazon is like right up there, and like doesn't have the right eyes to it, but it's their content is getting better and better all the time.
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, ultimately, like, they do have to get more competitive. We talked about how, you know, I think Disney is doing like that kind of package with like Hulu and ESPN. And that's going to be like a really big deal, like over there in the States at least, to kind of get that and get people to jump aboard all their content. I mean, we haven't talked about it because, well, I mean, personally, I don't give too much a damn about it, but like, there's like the Lady and the Tramp live action movie that's coming out, like, oh, that's a thing, but so it kind of gets everybody to kind of watch something, and to keep like the pipeline of new shows coming through.
Yeah,
But
so now all the live action remakes or some of the middling ones like Lady and the Tramp will be direct to the streaming service, exclusive to the streaming service, I guess.
ooh, I don't know. You see, that's the thing, right? Like, remember how like direct to DVD movies were generally like bad, right? This is
Mm-hmm.
like direct. This is technically direct to streaming, but we've kind of like elevated the quality of what modern television is. So that's not a bad thing anymore. Because it used to be a thing where like, oh, like a movie actor working in TV was like a bad thing. Like once you go to TV, you can't go back to movie. But now it's like it doesn't matter. Like this is how it should have always been. But like, given how specific and nichey the movie industry is, like kind of tainted the reputation someone might had like becoming a TV actor. But now it's it's okay to be like, hey, I work on a multi-billion-dollar show like Game of Thrones. Like it's one of those things that is kind of cool that they're bridging that particular
Yeah,
gap. But
it's
yeah.
it's still very hard. I think it's because they the I guess the vision or whatever it may be of what people see as actors in TV or movies is pretty much about the
Mhm.
same. I think the problem is that the movie game is just a lot more elevated, I guess, because like you look at someone like Kit Harington in Game of Thrones. He was like one of the leads. He's probably right up there, but he still doesn't have like the same charisma as something like a Tom Cruise or a Brad Pitt. So it's kind of like like you yeah, it's very hard to kind of do that, and it's only depend.
Yeah.
Like I feel like movie actors going to TV is really easy, but TV
Mhm.
show people to go to movies, yeah, I feel like it's still a very hard barrier. Like
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely think I can definitely understand. Like, I mean, Kit Harington's actually a good example. He recently got cast as a character in the Eternals. I'm pretty sure, like I think like Black Knight or something Knight or something like that. I don't care. I don't care about Eternals, to be honest.
yeah,
Like, it
who,
might be
who who
good,
knows?
but
Who knows anymore?
yeah, it might be good. Like, it's got Angelina Jolie. It's got
Some Hayek, it's got all
Selma
these big
Hayek.
name
She's
actors. So I feel like what
good,
they're gonna. My whole thing is since they're like gods, right? They just create the X-Men or
but
something.
but they're not gods. They're created by God.
Yeah, but like they'll do like they can create stuff. Yeah, no.
I don't know. I don't think so. I
They'll
think they
just
have
they'll
like
just be a big retcon and just be done with it.
yeah, I think that's the thing. Like the thing is they're created, but they're like a lot of them are like, oh, one of the characters is like thought to be like a god by the people that he stays with. Whereas like there's like a Russian one that's like a high-ranking Russian government agent or something like that. You know what I mean? Like it'll be interesting to see what they do with it, but I'm not super interested in the Eternals. But to kind of get back, like yeah, like um we'll see what Disney Plus has to offer. If they do make more kind of direct to movie, is Lady and the Tramp like a Disney Plus movie, or is it like a live?
I
Or is
think
it?
I think it is because I
Is
think
it?
there's no
Oh,
risk like schedule for it or anything. So I think it's going
oh,
direct.
that's actually really interesting because I mean, like, with something like those kind of show, like look, I don't know. I watched the original Lady and the Tramp like ages ago. Not my favorite you know movie. You know what I mean? But
Mm-hmm.
like at least like from an anime, and I feel like it's just going to be really. Yeah, you're right. So it's set to be released exclusively on November 12th, 2019 on Disney Plus. Wow,
Yeah,
that's
and
a
I feel like that. You know what
huh,
they'll do? They'll start doing
what?
live action movies of the spin-offs. Like, what was it? Like Lion King, like two and one and a half, and like like
Oh.
and all that type of stuff. They'll put it direct. They'll do live action versions of them and put them on there, and
I
then
don't
redo it
know.
all over again.
And then redo it all over again. God damn.
Well, speaking of redoing stuff in live action form, uh, we both saw the live action version of Aladdin, Disney's Aladdin, I guess.
Yes, Disney's Aladdin. I guess is that the oh, sorry. I guess it would be Aladdin. Disney's Aladdin 2019. Right? I guess.
Cause Aladdin's like not owned by Disney. It's not created by Disney, right? It's like a tale, or is it just is it,
I
or
think
is
it's
it just the
Aladdin.
Prince of
No.
Thieves thing?
I think the Aladdin and the I think it's like the story. It's like Aladdin and the Thousand Thieves or something like that. Like that's what the origin. I guess the audience can can let us know. It's like, oh, here we go. Yeah. The 1001 Night. That's what the kind of tale of Aladdin is kind of taken from. Arabian Nights. Um, but yeah, like I think Aladdin in and of itself is something taken from that and then placed like on the forefront. Much like I think uh, uh, you'll have like Frozen. Like Frozen is based off like a fairy tale. I'm not sure which one. I think it's like
The
maybe
Hans
the
Christian
Snow
Andersen
Queen.
one, yeah,
Is it called the Snow Queen? I could be wrong.
yeah,
But
the snow something.
yeah. So it might be that. But yeah, like so. What did you think of Aladdin 2019?
Well, first of all, I figure like it's probably the best live action version of all
Of all the shows. Oh, sorry,
of
movies.
all the Disney ones. Like, I think a lot of people praised Jungle Book, and I thought it was like it's pretty much the same thing. It didn't really do much anything interesting with its live action form. Cinderella was pretty good. That was like pretty much the start of them, all of them, and it was kind of very different. But
Hmm.
it was pretty much a lot better. Beauty and the Beast, I absolutely hate. I haven't watched Dumbo yet, and I haven't watched Lion King yet, but I heard they're pretty meddling to pretty bad. So
Right. Okay.
regardless
So
of
so
that, I feel like Aladdin's probably the best one out of all of them. Not only because
okay.
it probably translates a lot better to live action form, but I feel like it does. It has a few changes here and there that I feel like would help not only for a modern day audience, but it makes it, I guess, different enough that you can distinguish between the live action version and a cartoon version, and you
Mhm.
can watch both instead of just being like it's pretty much the exact same thing.
I'm looking at the kind of uh the whatchamacallit, the Wikipedia and how they kind of define um whether something is like a live action or a remake. Like they have like Cruella and like Maleficent in live action spin-off. Um and like I guess it's not a spin-off, but like they only call like these other films like remakes. It's a live action remake. That's what these are. Anyway, that's just me being pretty like
The
anal about
terminology.
about the semantics of it. But yeah, I mean, look, I haven't watched. I have zero interest in like looking at Cinderella and the Jungle Book. I like the Jungle Book, the animated series as the animated movie, and I like Beauty and the Beast and Cinderella and Dumbo. Like I liked watching those as kids, but they're not like my favorite like Disney movies. Aladdin, I'd probably consider is like my favorite like Disney movie, or if you want to say like Disney princess movie, if that makes sense, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and Lion King, while I did like the movie, I'm probably just gonna wait till like I don't know, like the DVD or something comes out. But like Aladdin, oh man, like it's it does the story one to one, right? But
Yeah, pretty
without
more or less
watching,
one to one. There's like a few tweaks, I'd
yeah,
say.
there's like yeah, there's like one or two things which I guess we'll talk about in a bit, but it's just like, as I continued watching the film, I kind of thought, why am I not just watching the original movie?
Mm.
Because I think like because the original movie, Jafar in this movie. Look, I like they kind of extended out a lot of other stuff, like for example, like Jasmine's mother, and that like she came
Not
from
only
like
like the maid as well.
yeah, the maid, right? The maid. Yeah, they definitely went out of their way to make like Agrabah to be a lot more, I guess like ethnically diverse, which is not something I was expecting, right? Like, because I think like they made like she was like Greek, the handmaiden, right?
Mm.
Like, or like maybe Greek or like or some
Around
Macedonian
there.
or whatever around there, Italian. I don't know. She was white. That's what I'm that's what I'm trying to say, right? Whereas like everyone else was like, they were like brown and there was like black people there. There's all these kind of like it was, and I'm like, oh, okay, that's kind of different, like because the Agrabah was in the cartoon was like kind of a representative of like Arabia. That's what it's supposed essentially supposed to be. But in this case, they kind of showed that like what is it? Jasmine's mother is from like another country, and that might lead to like some sequel potential in some capacity. Like I don't know, who knows? I'm not
There
too
are
sure where
talks.
they're
There
gonna
are
go.
talks.
There
The
are
sequel.
talks, right? But yeah, like a lot of this movie, I was just thinking, why am I why am I not just watching the original? The thing is, like, I think the first like kind of song and dance, which is like between Aladdin and Jasmine when they're running away from. Oh, sorry, no, I think it's a second song. But essentially, when they're running away from all the thieves and all the guards and stuff, there were certain scenes where like the dancing felt sped up. I don't know if you saw that when you were watching the movie. It kind of stuck out to me very clearly that like it's almost as if they had to speed up the action to kind of get it in line with the song. And it kind of was like, it's kind of like when you're watching something at like, 30 frames and 60 frames, right? It becomes very, very apparent.
Yeah. I don't know about that point, but I feel like maybe there was certain like with the music cues. I feel like sometimes it was slower, sometimes it was kind of faster almost. Obviously
Hmm.
because obviously because animation's completely different to live
Yeah,
action,
yeah,
so the,
exactly.
the 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 timing of stuff can be completely different, and how it's kind of seen. Like even
Yeah,
with
you
the
can't.
with the escape scene of that escape scene with the guards, and then Aladdin crashes into that thing, and there's all those like girls in that saying like, oh yeah, like Aladdin's like they're hitting on Aladdin, like that
Yeah,
that
yeah,
bit,
yeah.
like in the cartoon version was like it felt a little bit different than the I guess the live
Yeah,
action version.
I think in the live, I think in the cartoon, I think the only difference is like the woman who like kind of scares Aladdin away is like this really like kind of fat woman who kind of like shears him away. Whereas like I think like ultimately it's kind of like it's more or less the same. But yeah, like a lot of this movie, like I think the big disappointment for me was Jafar. Like I get they kind of expanded his role, like oh he used to be a thief and he kind of like tricked and
He's like, I
deceived
used
and
to be like you, and then I got an arrow to the knee, and then I got a scepter. Like that's what I.
yeah.
As soon as I'm like, yeah, he's like
I
exactly the
mean,
same.
it kind of came to play a point later because like he does end up like stealing the lamp from Aladdin, so it's like oh like he used to also have like a thief past, and that's why he was able to do that. But I think ultimately like yeah it I just didn't find the actor, and it's not necessarily the actor's fault. I just felt like he didn't pull off the ooh creepy advisor. He just kind of came off as, hey, I'm just like the same age as like Aladdin, and I'm for some reason the your creepy advisor with a snake staff is manipulating all of Agrabah. What a fucking surprise. At least like in the animated movie, I felt like Jafar did a really good job at like kind of coming off as like a long-term like wise advisor for the sultan because he was like an older gentleman,
Like he
right?
knows his stuff basically. Yeah.
Yeah, whereas this guy's like he's so young. Like I didn't really kind of uh I didn't really kind of fall for, well, not fall for it. I wasn't convinced that he was the kind of menacing villain that he was supposed to be.
Yeah, I always felt
um
like he was almost hamming it up to make
Hmm.
it feel like he was not a threat. Like it felt
Yeah, yeah,
like, and it's cartoony, and once again, it's like, yeah, this is kind of for kids, I suppose. So it kind of has that kind of element to it. But I know that the
yeah,
at least
yeah. But so was
at least
Aladdin.
the animated one is,
Yeah.
and it
So
does it in
sorry.
such
So
a
is
good way.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's kind
The
of
real question, like, if we're talking about bad acting, I really hate the guy who played Aladdin. I do not think he can act.
oh, you didn't like him? Okay.
I like he seems like an alright dude. I'm assuming he's the one who's singing, which is fine. He plays a really good Aladdin. My problem is his actual acting itself is pretty bad. Like I feel like his delivery and some of the lines is very like one note, very wooden. Like we gotta save the princess. Like it's like, come on,
Okay.
man. Like just do a little bit more like emotion in there. Like, and my whole thing is like the girl who played Jasmine. My faves, which is also she's in Power Rangers. You know that movie that I do like that everyone hates. She's in
Oh,
that.
oh, oh. Okay,
Oh,
yeah. Look, I'm looking her up right now. She was Kimberly.
mm-hmm. Yeah,
Ah,
and she was in that,
interesting.
and I
That might
liked her in
be.
that, and I liked her in this movie as well. She has a lot more, I guess, things to do. I guess in this movie, she actually has an original
You
song
see,
that Disney wrote for her.
yeah, and is the original the one where she turns everyone to dust?
Yeah, pretty much. And she's like, I
Yeah.
won't
Okay.
stand and hide anymore.
Yeah, yeah. I'm just gonna say, like, look, I didn't know who she was, but like until now, like obviously I've seen her in Power Rangers, so now I don't like her in two films. She was not good in this film. She just kind of constantly like because this whole time, they kind of set her up to be like, oh, I want to be Sultan, but oh, you can't be Sultan, you have to get married, right? Like this was never kind of a plot point in the original movie, and they made it in this movie, and she becomes a sultan in the end. Like, wouldn't she become like a? Is there a sultress? Is that how it works? I don't know.
Either
Maybe
way,
there
someone's
isn't
getting
one, right?
salty.
Salty, right? Yeah, that's me. I'm salty, right? Like, no, but it's just like I don't know. I wasn't really convinced. Like the chemistry between her and Aladdin, I never was. Sorry, I get Mina Masood as Aladdin. I never really felt that like throughout this entire kind of movie. Like, yeah, like they sing on a carpet and all right, yeah, like he flirts with her, but like he literally like she kind of like in this film like they make her out to be like oh she doesn't want to be kind of tied down and Aladdin literally comes in and says like oh I want to buy you right like
Yeah, what is it? The movie does have some really cool and interesting kind of like fun, I guess, jokes at that expense. Like I feel like yeah, if we're talking about joke type of stuff, like there's a scene obviously where you buy the princess. That was a really great scene. If we're gonna talk about jokes, obviously we pretty much have to talk about what like Will Smith's genie. I guess in compared to Robin Williams' genie. So do you feel like he at least pulled it off? Hello. I think we lost Chad's. He is MIA. He is MIA. But I essentially what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna be talking about a little bit about I guess Will Smith's genie kind of I guess interpretation. His I think he did a really great job. Especially in comparison to something like Robin Williams is tour de force when it comes to comedy and pretty much doing all that type of stuff. So I feel like Will Smith did a pretty good job. He
Mhm.
pretty much tapped in the same type of vibe as Robin Williams, doing little snarky little comments here and there,
Yeah.
and pretty much putting it into the modern day audience. I feel like that's what he just pretty much did the same thing.
Yeah, I think he did a good job at kind of like carrying the torch that way, and especially given, like I said, like all the bad kind of press and all the memes that initially came out about Will Smith initially as the genie. But the moment I saw him hitting on like the handmaiden, I immediately guessed that oh, the kids like it is actually the genie at the beginning of the film, you know?
Yeah, I kind of I knew kind of straight away because like why show the kids at the front start of the movie if there's not going to
Well,
be a
well,
linky?
but that's the thing, right? Like it's at the beginning of the Aladdin. I never knew this, but apparently it's the case. Robin Williams is actually the voice of like
The street
the
merchant.
lamp. Yeah, the street merchant who's trying to sell the lamp. So like I kind of like that's like a really kind of cool like kind of thing that you can think about with this movie. Whereas this is like it's very explicit. Like, oh yeah, it's actually the genie at the end on the boat. You know. Yeah, I think yeah I didn't like yeah, Naomi Scott, she's horrible in this film. I'm just gonna say, yeah. I mean, the original song was so bad and out of place. Like she's taken out from Jafar, and for some reason has this like weird empowerment song, like that
Mm.
comes out of nowhere, and she's turning everyone into dust. And
She
then
won't be
like,
silent anymore, guys.
and
Come on.
then but then she returns back to where she was being held by the guards. Like, I kind of felt like it would have been better if like she was singing the song and like managing to like maybe like dodge all the guards. Like that would have been more interesting, right?
Yeah,
Like
instead of putting
if
in like a dream sequence, and I feel like that's
yeah.
probably the least planned thing out there. I think because it very much feels
Oh,
kind of not only tacked on, but I feel like
shoot in.
yeah,
Yeah, that's what it
because not
feels
only
like.
I think the main reason why they did make original stuff is because to be I guess nominated for an Oscar, especially for a musical and original song, you can't obviously reuse old songs from other things.
Oh,
So basically,
okay.
the way to do it is like you have to rewrite a completely new song for something to be nominated, and that's how like Disney's been doing it for quite a few years now, where they're just like rewriting a new song just so it could be in
And
this movie, so we can be
and
nominated.
inserting it somewhere. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, to be honest, it wasn't that great, so I hope it doesn't win. I'm just putting my negative energy out there. But look,
Hey, no, if
not
we're
all
going
of
to do
this.
something positive, I feel like the movie at least is very beautiful in a color perspective and in color grading, and it looks really good. Like the desert
It
scenes and
does.
colorful.
It does.
Yeah.
It does, but I don't know. That's like I kind of expected it to be like this. I think that's the problem with it. It's like nothing about it kind of blew me out of the way with out of blew my expectations in any capacity with the visual. It looks good, right? Like Star Wars looks good,
Hmm.
right? But looking good isn't all you need. You know, there's got to be something that kind of keeps everything in line. And I think the thing that kind of keeps the glue together in this movie is when Will Smith gets introduced as the genie. If you like Will Smith, you will enjoy all his moments, and him alone is kind of worth the movie itself. But is it a recommend? Meh, just watch the original. Honestly,
Yeah. Like
that's my
yeah, yeah. My whole thing is just like it pretty much is the exact same story. There's just probably a few things a little bit different. It also like you do have both genies that are quite similar. So like, it just really depends on your preference. If you like, do you like animated or live action, I guess, like because it pretty much is more or less kind of the same. But you know, as I mentioned before, there's probably the best live action version that we probably have. Like we do have that Mulan movie coming out in later on, and then the Little Mermaid one. But I'd still feel like it's pretty much going to be the exact same. Okay, like like it's the exact same type of thing. I feel like it's not going to do much. You know.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, apparently it doesn't have like songs allegedly,
Yeah, yeah. I think
so
yeah,
that's a shame
Mulan
because
doesn't.
Mulan had great songs.
I think maybe Little Mermaid does. I'm assuming a Little Mermaid does.
Uh, Mulan needs to have songs. That's so disappointing
No,
if we
I
get
think it's
that.
gonna be like told as like a
That's
hardcore
so
like Chinese type
that's
film, like
oh
with
that's awful.
warlords and generals.
That sounds awful, and I'm not gonna watch it. What can
Yep.
I tell you? Milan has an excellent set of musical numbers in it.
Very iconic. You know,
Very iconic.
like which other Disney animated film has Jackie Chan singing in it?
Is Jackie Chan in it?
No, no, no. But like, there's a video of him singing the "I'll Make a Man Out of You" in like Mandarin
Oh,
on YouTube, and it's like an
oh,
official music video, and I'm just like, man, this is the best thing ever. Like, I
that's
want them,
dope. I didn't know that.
I want them to bring Jackie Chan to sing it. I want them to bring back Szechuan sauce so people get stop complaining for Rick and Morty.
Uh,
Yeah,
yeah. I feel ya. Look, China, give it to us ASAP. But yeah, I guess yeah. Look, I think like I'm not. I've never been excited for any of these live action remakes. I've constantly seen them as a cash grab from Disney's end. Like I get it. It's going to make them a lot of money, and they're not. They're better than a mediocre film. right? You're gonna enjoy watching this with like your kids or something.
Mm.
But are they like amazing films? No, they're not.
Yeah,
But if you like Aladdin and you want to kind of see what it's like live action, like go watch this film. Otherwise, skip it.
yeah, that's pretty much the sentiment. But yeah, moving on to something that's a little bit more adult. I'm gonna be reviewing Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, which is Tarantino's new film. He said it's his ninth film, and I feel like there is a meme that it's like, Kill Bill, 1 and 2 is technically one movie, so that's why it counts as one, or else it'd be up to 10 movies. But besides the point, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood is kind of set in 1969, kind of in that early era, kind of getting to the 70s. And it obviously follows two characters, which is Brad Pitt and Leonardo DiCaprio, which is Rick Dalton and Cliff Booth. One of them is, what is it? Leonardo DiCaprio's character is kind of like a kind of
An actor?
and yeah, he's an actor who's kind of on the down low. He's not getting the roles that he wanted to get or used to get. And Brad Pitt is pretty much his old school stunt man. That's kind of his like best friend and kind of like person he hangs around with to do stuff in general. But he has kind of a stigma around him because he could have killed his wife, and the industry hates him for it, which is very much because I think in a brief overview that this is kind of like this movie in a sense is almost like a retelling of what kind of Hollywood was in that time era, and like different stories around that time era. But like at the same time, it's obviously made its own kind of version of it at its own time. So Brad Pitt's character I think is pretty much like an ideologue for one of the people in real life who I think her name was like Sharon something, or I forgot her name, but essentially in the late 60s early 70s there was a controversy that one of the an actress in real life died because she fell off a boat. That was what was said. And then the husband said, "We don't know anything about it." And Brad Pitt's pretty much playing that character.
Mm-hmm.
And and I feel like there's it's a real life controversy, and it really did happen, and people are still trying to solve it to this day. They did touch on that a little bit. But yeah, I really do enjoy this film because it's 2 hours and 40 minutes. It's pretty much like a Tarantino film, just set in Hollywood, where it has these unique and interesting characters, and more characters that you want to see more of. Like, Rick Dalton is this kind of like a over the top actor who feels like he should deserve better, and he knows he's declining in quality. So he's trying to get into like serious acting, but to get into the serious acting, he needs to book Italian spaghetti western films, and he hates Italian films, which is like the hilarious part of it is, he's like, man,
okay.
and that's obviously an ideologue for like Django all the way to like Good and Bad, the Ugly, that whole type of stuff. And yeah, this again, I guess like I'm just rambling on a bit because there's just so much in this film, but essentially it just follows those characters and Margot Robbie's character, which is Sharon Tate, and she's a real life actress that was in a bunch of films that lives next door to them. They don't really interact that much,
So wait, so she's a real life Hollywood figure, but are they like the characters that they play in the movie?
They're made up.
Okay.
They're made up, but they're kind of like semi ideologues. Like, oh, this person's kind of supposed to represent this person. This person's supposed to kind of represent. But like Margot Robbie is playing Sharon Tate, who's a real life actress, and and they kind of play it to a T. Because the whole thing is Brad Pitt and Leonardo DiCaprio's characters are living right next door to Sharon Tate, who is dating Roman Polanski at the time. Now, if you don't know anything about Roman Polanski, he's I would say a pretty great director. But he is
isn't he also a pedophile?
That's what I was leading up to. He's also a pedophile.
Okay.
So there's a lot of stuff where it's like, if you don't know much about your, I guess, Hollywoodness and like a lot of things like history about certain things, it will fly by you really quickly. Like, one of my friends who did watch it, they're just like, oh, what's the deal with this Polanski guy? And he's played by someone in the movie. And just like, oh, this and this, and also he's a pedophile. It's like,
Okay.
So there's a lot of
like,
yeah.
okay, I feel ya. So yeah,
Dude,
I guess is it like there's a lot of kind of references to like kind of Hollywood figures in this movie?
yeah, there's a few. Well, obviously there's they go to they go to the Playboy Bunny, the Playboy Mansion. Um,
Mansion? Oh, okay.
they
Oh,
they
so
get
Hugh Hefner's in the movie?
Hugh Hefner's not in the movie, but they get a guy playing Steve McQueen, and they have like a few famous people out there. There is controversy of one of some guy who plays Bruce Lee, which by the way does the most perfect Bruce Lee impersonation I've ever seen in my entire life. Um, and you know basically this Bruce Lee guy and Brad Pitt's character have a fight on set because you know
Oh, okay.
because the whole thing is like Bruce Lee was very arrogant at the time. He's like, I could
I've
defeat
heard
anyone.
this.
We can do. And then Brad Pitt's like, because he's an ex army guy who's
Yeah.
now a stuntman. He's just like, yeah, you know, like all your karate stuff is like showmanship. Like, give me the real stuff, and they have a real life fight. You know,
Oh, okay.
and
That's pretty funny.
yeah, it's playful laughs, and it's like probably one of the best bits in the film. Um,
Oh, okay.
So yeah, you've got that going on. You've got Brad Pitt, getting in trouble into set and like living a pretty terrible life. Driving around and basically being the helper guy for Leonardo DiCaprio's character, and then Leo is basically trying to raise in the ranks and has to do all these shitty roles. And like he's trying to prove that he's a good actor. So you've got a lot of that hype of Hollywood type of stuff in there, but
Mm-hmm.
and I guess the other part of it is kind of because they touch on it very very smallly, but it kind of expands a bit, and that's kind of like the Manson I guess cult. Charles Manson is in the film. It is very brief, and they don't necessarily say his name, so you wouldn't know unless you know. And he's there, and basically Brad Pitt's character visits the Manson cult in a scene for about like 30-40 minutes. Um, and
Oh.
also one of the best scenes in the film because it's very tense, very eerie. It's pretty much set, and you know it's very weird because everyone in the town is all like female, and he's like the only
Mm-hmm.
male who's coming in because he picked up this like hippie girl who he kept on seeing back and forth throughout the movie. And it's very intense.
Oh, okay.
I thought it was gonna get into like some sort of horror movie type of thing, but yeah, it's a really great scene, and it's a really
Mm.
good touch on I guess the Manson side of
The
things
time. Yeah.
because like
It's interesting the kind of like set pieces they've decided to like put in the film. Like I guess like it's very like telling of like what was going on at that particular time in Hollywood, right?
yeah, it's
But
pretty much a
then
really good snapshot because I think like
yeah.
Tarantino is one of those guys who like I think he likes old classic Hollywood, and I think this is like obviously the time when he kind of grew up, so he has a lot of
Mhm.
this knowledge of theaters and the type of references, and I feel like this is pretty much his thing of like this is what Hollywood was like, and even if you like listen to the soundtrack, you know, really great selected tracks of the time, and you know putting those commercials in like he usually does of like an like this is what this commercial was back in the day, you know.
I feel you.
Yeah,
It seemed to be like like I think Tarantino often does this like it's like kind of like a love letter to this kind of period, this like as you said like a slice in history.
yeah, and he does it, and he does it really well. It gets the feel right, and it gets these characters right, and how they would act, and you know, Brad Pitt's character has like this really like light fluoro shirt. You know, he's playing the role
Hmm.
100%. You see, hippies walking around because that's a little bit more of a thing back in those days, like free love and
Goddamn
everything.
hippies.
Yeah, well. Speaking of which, the there is a set piece around the end of the film, uh, revolving around hippies, and it's probably the best scene of the film, but also the most funniest scene of the film. I just loved every minute of it because it was not only intense but it was funny at the same time. Because I don't want to spoil too much, but essentially, um, this is a Tarantino film, and throughout the 2 hours and like 2 hours and 10 minutes, I'm like, we haven't seen mass gore or mass violence.
I was I was about to ask whether like like in a typical like Tarantino film, like it does have like this hyper violent, hyper, realism in all this kind of like, gore and, gunplay and stuff like that. I was gonna ask you whether there was a hype, any kind of violence or something in this film, and well, apparently there is towards the end.
Yeah, and I'm just like, okay, we're nearing the end. Where is this violence? And then I did get it, and I am just like, yeah, it's a sight to be seen. Like, I feel like when you see it for the first time, you're very much in shock because you're just like, man, did that actually happen? And it just keeps on escalating, and it's just
Yeah, yeah.
it's done in such a really great effect that like it shows this ultra violence, but you're actually laughing at it, and I
Mhm.
feel like that's one of Tarantino's strength, that he can give it such an adult manner, but make it as a laughable thing. Um, and even just if we're talking about like the tone of the film, I almost feel like it kind of feels like a majority of it does feel like a Scorsese type of film. You know, it does have like this,
Right.
there's a part of the film where it does have a voiceover with Leonardo DiCaprio and Brad Pitt talking about their relationships and where they're going in life. You know, essentially, they at some point they might have to split ways because, you know, Leonardo DiCaprio is going one way, Brad Pitt's character is going another way. Um, and they're living two different types of lifestyles. Um,
Yeah, yeah, I get you. I kind of, I heard there was like, there's a lot of like stunt action in this film, like that it's not like fake stunts. You know what I mean? Like apparently, like people are lit on fire and stuff like that, in this film, if I'm not mistaken.
yeah. People are lit on fire. People are
And
lit on fire.
and it's yeah, and it's not like CGI. It's like people were actually lit on fire, for those particular scenes, and like that's not something that's kind of done normally these days, right? And it's like it's kind of like a rare sight to have that many people be kind of lit on fire, and they did it for like this film just to kind of capture the vibe of that era. So that's really cool to see that Tarantino once again is just kind of doing like making films that he wants to make for his own kind of like interest,
Yeah, and
right?
and pretty much if people want to like it, they want to like it, and I feel like a lot of people do like his, I guess, stuff, and I feel like yeah,
Hmm.
any type of style, and it's like, yeah, like overall, it's very hard to kind of pinpoint what this movie is, but it's very much just a day in the life of these actors, and then and then people like kind of semi related, revolving around them and how they're relating to each other. Like with Robbie's character, her best scene is going to the theater and being like, hey, I'm in this movie, can I go watch the movie? And then her kind of watching the movie for the first time and seeing what everyone's interactions are with the movie, and her character, and her smiling when people are laughing at her jokes and things like that. And it's like little small things like that make this type of film. So like overall, I probably wouldn't say like it has this big complex plot, but it does have it just basically just feels like we're just in the day in the life of these characters, and this is their type of life, and it's very cool and interesting to see, and it's kind of like a like I could
It's
see
very
I
Hollywood.
basically just see more and more of these characters because
Mhm.
Tarantino is really good at building characters, and it's like I want to see more of them.
Yeah, that's fantastic. It's good to hear. But, I still haven't seen a lot of like Tarantino's like other work recently. Like, he did like the what is it like
Well, we had
the
the Hateful Eight, which is like a
Hateful Eight.
which is
That's the
very
one that
much
I
like
haven't seen.
which is very much a play, more or less, because it's just set in pretty much two locations. Um, and I really enjoy that, but it very much is the most self indulgent Tarantino film.
Oh yeah, really?
Yeah, it's all his stuff. So
Is that a good thing that it's self-indulgent?
kinda like I like that it's like
Okay.
long takes that go on for 20 minutes, and all that.
Yeah, sure, sure. Yeah, I mean, it can be a bit like, hit or miss sometimes when they do things like that. Like Tarantino seems to be like the type of guy he's just like, every 3 years or so, I'm gonna release a new film, like, and he just does it on like whatever the hell he wants to do it on.
Yeah, a lot
But
of westerns these days.
yeah, a lot of West. Yeah, you're right. Like, a lot of cowboys and stuff. Hey, look, that is a niche that isn't really like, fulfilled. Like, I'm glad someone is doing it.
Yeah. So, but yeah,
Yeah.
overall, I really enjoyed the movie. Um, and I think everyone just should see it because it's pretty fun and very interesting. And I just love Tarantino. So, what else do you want?
Yeah, no, that's fair enough. Um, I guess I'll move on to talk about a game that I've been playing now. The game is called Telling Lies. So I don't know if you've played a game called Her Story before. But
I do remember. I think I remember playing it. That's the one where it's the videos, right?
yeah. So essentially, like, uh, you're like a detective. And it's the same thing for this game too. It's like you're a detective. Well, you're an FBI agent in this game, but like the goal is like you're a detective of some kind, and you're trying to piece together what happened with this particular like case that you're working. For example, like in this game, is centered around like an FBI agent, but you actually don't know that he's an FBI agent initially because you have no information going into the game. It kind of gives you like a starting word, like it'll give you like love, and essentially what it'll do is it'll find like snippets of a video where it uses the word love, and you'll watch the snippet and you'll kind of slowly find out more about like the character and what they're saying, right? So in this game, it's kind of explained like, oh, like the NSA has a program called Retina. It's kind of very I think it's supposed to be very similar to like Prism, which is essentially this like government spying software that, sorry, spying program that the CIA used, right? And essentially like it like active recording of people and videos, so you can kind of listen to people having conversations and try and figure out this greater mystery. So, for example, when I was playing, in one of the original kind of videos, they mentioned the word David. So, the next thing you can do is you can type in David, and then any videos that will use the word David will pop up. And you
Mm.
find out, oh, who is this David? Oh, who's this other new character? Oh, David has a wife. Wait, is David like cheating on his wife?
Oh
Like,
my
oh,
god!
yeah, and it just kind of escalates into like this kind of greater mystery
So you're
where,
pretty much like a detective, almost like.
yeah. Well, it's kind of explained that as you kind of continue playing, like your character is called Karen, and she's an FBI agent. But like you kind of don't know that until you kind of continue a little bit forward, and you're like, hey, isn't this the kind of cool thing that they do in the game that they kind of didn't do in the previous game is like there'll be things that are happening in the outside world as well that'll like trigger when you find like certain information. Like for example, um, when you join like you find out that there's like a bomb plot, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so when that happens, it'll trigger like for me, it triggered like like her cat jumping on her keyboard, and it like kind of messes up your searching and stuff. So it was kind of cool because you see her face kind of reflected in the screen, and it's like kind of looks like it's you as her pretending to search for these things. So it's kind of hard to explain, like, oh, like how do you search for videos? But I think the way that the game works is it probably has like a script, and there are like certain videos that have these particular words that'll pop up when you search for certain things. Like, like there's like this cam girl who David is talking to, and you have to try and find out like, well, you don't have to, but you're like, you want to kind of find out, oh, what's her relationship in the story. There's a lot of like kind of like Snow White references. So initially, like, I was like kind of searching up like, the seven dwarves and stuff because they get mentioned. So it's like, oh,
Poison apple.
what are the yeah, there's things like that. And it's really good. Like I really liked her story because like her story kind of was a mystery about like this woman and her upbringing, and this is kind of the game taken to like the next level. It is quite short, and there is technically like if you don't read like the information going into the game, there is technically like a soft time limit in the game, in the sense that the game, like the files, because they're taken from these from the NSA, they have like they'll like automatically like shut down or something like that, and so you have to send, and like based on your search history, and all the things that you've searched, it like determines like what ending you get. But the ending is always the same, from my understanding. It's just like if you search up certain characters, you'll get like the epilogue of what happens to those characters. So,
Right.
for example, like hypothetically, if you don't find out his relationship with the cam girl, you won't get, oh, what happens to her after the events of, the game. Same thing, like, about like, the wife or this woman that he's cheating on with, or, is he really an FBI agent? Who knows? Like all of these kind of things kind of, it's just like an excellent, um, attempt at kind of doing this kind of narrative video game style. Because I do like narrative driven video games. Because this could be, you could watch, I think if you go into like the Steam files for this game, you can actually find the folder which has all the videos, and you can watch all the videos in order if you wanted.
Mm-hmm.
But like that kind of defeats the mystery aspect of the game. I would recommend that, like, yeah, if you because I made like the game kind of gives you like the option of having like a virtual notepad that you can write notes down. I got like a notepad, and I was writing down like a bunch of keywords and crossing them off as I was like playing this game. And it does make you feel more of a detective, even though like this game is purposely limiting the videos that you watch, right? But I think ultimately this game does a great job at kind of expanding this genre, and I can't recommend these kind of games enough. So I would recommend Her Story if you haven't played it. I think it's relatively cheap on Steam.
Yeah, I think at one point it was like very cheap. Like
Yeah, I
you
think
you can find them a lot of the times very cheap, or like when there's like a indie game bundle, they usually
yeah
just
that
in there.
yeah that was my kind of introduction to Her Story, was that I got it through like an indie bundle. But Telling Lies is kind of like the natural evolution of the game, and I can't recommend it enough. Yeah, it's currently on the Australian store. It's 15, like about 15. So I can imagine it kind of dropping down, like 75% off, and you can get it for $5. But like these
How
guys
long did
make
it
it
take you
really,
to beat like in like your time?
in my time. I think like I ended up like kind of speed running it the second time, like because I played it like technically twice, but like in my second, because the game doesn't force you to um end when it tells you, but like if you want to get the epilogue endings, like I think you have to kind of like look up everything about all the characters, or try and maximize everything that you can find about them. So
Mm.
like I only got like one epilogue ending the first time I did it, and then through my second, I think you can do it in one sitting, definitely. But like it took me like I want to say like maybe it's kind of I'd probably have to check how long it took it for me, but I feel like my initial run, because I was watching everything, it probably took me like maybe like 2-3 hours, just kind of like comfortably watching it. And then like when I ran out of time and got my ending, and then re like busted through everything, it was much shorter, because like you don't have to, because like in order for the film to be checked, you don't have to watch all of it. Um, so yeah, I think the second time, like I like sped through it, and I got like the other two endings and found out what to do with it. And then I also found out that you can find out what it is on YouTube as well. So I was
Hey,
like,
come
oh,
on, that's cheating.
yeah, exactly. That's cheating. You have to earn your endings. But yeah, I definitely recommend Telling Lies and Her Story.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, that's gonna be us for this week. We can always remember to listen to us on Spotify, iTunes, Libsyn, and our YouTube channel, Marketing Movies. As always, please like, share, and subscribe on our Content and Marketing Movies channel. So until next time, Henry Cavill could be our Superman. We won't know until whenever. So until next time, see you guys.
Gotcha.